There's a ton of everyone. That was my pitch.
We are living in a world on fire, full of sickness, disease, and fear. The world has made profit more important than the health of people.
Thankfully, we still have a way back to a healthy spirit, mind, and body.
The purpose of this Nature Makes the Rules podcast is to let people of all ages know that they can still have a strong and healthy life, no matter what the rest of the world is saying or doing.
We invite you to join us, Dr. Joe and Ilene, for the Nature Makes the Rules podcast.
Well, hey there, everybody. This is Dr. Joe Arve, along with my wonderful wife and co-host, Ilene Arve.
Hello.
Hello, for another exciting show called Spine Geek Podcast, where nature, God, makes the rules.
Yep. And child milestones.
Child milestones. So if you listen to show 1, you're excited about this part 2 to it and what we're going to continue to carry on. If you didn't listen, go back to listen to show 1, but we'll catch you up. You know, it's kind of like just confession time. We like watching NCIS. And it'll say, last time on NCIS.
I think most shows do that.
And then it gives you the ability to skip it. So,
That's true.
I'm not giving you the ability to skip it this year. But so we talked about that when you have a baby, there are natural, because this baby's fearfully and wonderfully made, there are natural progressions of development. It starts in the brain. That's why brain makes the rules, right?
Because your brain was the first thing God made in there, brain and spinal cord.
Exactly, in the womb. And that puts you all together and then spits you out at 9 months. And then that job of the brain was to teach and help the child innately, it already knows, right? The operating system and the programming is already in the brain to help this baby of yours eat. And when we say eat, that means latch and
Nursing.
swallow and digest and nurse. And then the brain tells teeth to grow. And at that time, the digestive system is ready for some food, right?
Yep.
And then,
Movement.
And then as that goes, then sleep. The brain helps the child sleep to soothe itself, to calm itself down, be able to go to bed, sleep for a good number of hours, if not all night, depending on, again, every child's fearfully, wonderfully made. Every child's different. But if they wake up, they should not wake up in fear, even though they may. They shouldn't, they should be able to sleep and be able to go back to sleep when they wake up. And so that's just something to keep an eye on. Again, we don't want to turn these into medical conditions or reasons to visit a standard pediatrician or a medical provider, because lots of times they'll go, they'll grow out of it. But to us, being brain-based neurological chiropractors that we are, we're like, okay, we know what normal is, and it may be common, but we need to make sure this baby. And so we see remarkable things happen with this. And so sleep and then pooping, they got to be able to poop on a regular basis, 2 or 3 times a day.
Must come out.
Yep. 3 trains in, 3 trains out. 1 train in, 1 train out. It's basically, it's not normal for a child to go every other day or every 5 days. Now,
Or 10 days. That's ridiculous.
Now, am I saying if your child is one like that, you're a bad mom or a bad... No, we're not saying...
no.
We're just trying to let you say, hey, just because maybe your friends or whatever are... But God has made our brains and bodies to go poop more often during the day.
Right. And so, honestly, chiropractic care is ideal.
Yes.
A pediatric chiropractor to gently adjust your child, which is no side effects other than maybe giving it a nice, good poop.
Exactly. Poop happens. And again, a lot of this information is out there. I want to thank our friends at PX Docs, Dr. Tony and the gang, and then also Max Living for just being part of our tribe, to where, a lot of the stuff that Mrs. Arve, you talk about the Webster breech turning technique. Well, Dr. Webster was my teacher.
He adjusted our daughter.
Yeah,
too.
he adjusted our daughter. He was our daughter's first chiropractor. And so again, back then, we had different names for these different things. And so phase 1 is eat, sleep, poop, and then move. Your baby should have control over the head and neck, be able to pick its head up, have tummy time, sit up, roll over, crawling, walking, running, jumping. Again, there's the right times for our babies to go through all this, And when the baby is in an environment of love and peace, when the baby's nerve system is getting checked and adjusted on a weekly basis, when the baby's actually eating food, not formula, when the baby's body is free of toxins and poisons, then this process happens right on time, in order, in sequence, so that the brain says, okay, we got that covered, but there's more. And so now phase 2 of what I call executive or complex brain function, milestones. The first one is speech.
Mm-hmm.
The child begins to talk. The child begins to communicate.
Or even goo goo gaga, making noises that you look like communication. I make a noise, you make a noise. I blow bubbles, you blow bubbles.
Right. But there's an intent to it.
Yeah.
And the brain is trying to just start gathering data
Mm-hmm.
to build up its database on communication.
Sure.
And one of the things that you had used, Mrs. Ilene, is sign language.
I did. Our number 4. I'm like, okay, I know there's got to be a better way. And boy, I tell you what, we didn't do 100 words, but we had probably a good 10 words in sign language. And it was so, you're like, how can this thing
Yeah.
that is so tiny sign me?
No, communicate.
Communicate with me, because they want to say something, but to communicate, to say that they want more,
Right.
that they want some water. I just,
Yeah. Yes.
I was in awe. I
No.
was so impressed
Yeah.
that how it was very easy to do.
Yeah.
But that they're like just waiting to communicate to you
Yeah.
as a little bundle.
Yeah. And we apologize to our first 3 children.
They didn't get sign language.
Because again, I was born in 1965. We weren't allowed to talk. We weren't taken to restaurants. It was sit there and be quiet, and don't talk unless talked to. So good luck trying to, again, I'm not perfect and I made a lot of mistakes, but we tried to learn. And that's why we're doing this podcast, to kind of just share with you and say, I wish someone told us a long time ago about sign language. It would have helped save us, right?
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It is. It's so wonderful.
And speech and communication is an important part of this brain development in this child. But if eating, sleeping, pooping, and moving properly is skipped, then the child has issues with speech and communication, because the brain hasn't laid down the groundwork, the foundations. And again, to circle back, why is my child having an issue with speech and communication? We have to go back to the nerve system. We have to go back to the brain. We have to go back to the environment. Is it a stressful environment? Is the child getting food? Is the child getting toxins injected through medications or vaccines? Is the child able to move, or are they always in front of the TV or on the iPad? All these have a positive or negative effect on the brain, which you see it as the child not eating, sleeping, pooping, moving.
Yeah.
And now speech and communication is impaired. Or if all those things are happening, then you have your child who's just singing and dancing and communicating and very articulate and using these words, that it picks up from around its environment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a normal part of the milestone, right?
So I say, well, hey, Dr. Joe, why do you always bring it back to chiropractic? And it's because we've seen it's like miracle after miracle with these children and people that their bodies just are kind of missing a cog or something, and then they get adjusted, and then their bodies are working like 100%. And there's no pain, there's no side effects, it's just ease.
And you have these loving parents who really, the environment is great. It's
Mm-hmm.
positive. It's loving. They're not getting vaccinated. They're eating organic. They eat better than we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're moving, tummy time, all this stuff, but the baby's still not thriving. And we scan the nerve system with our Insight, Insight nerve scanners. We see it, and it's right there. It's either in a blue, red, or green. Like, there's the nerve. The brain can't communicate properly. What your child's experiencing or expressing is the symptom. It's the oilite, right?
Yeah.
And now we're going to make an adjustment, and that brain's going to start communicating to that body. And man, it's like the whole baby's life changes. The whole child's life. It's like, oh, now I can communicate.
Yeah.
Now I can thrive.
Right.
And that's what we see. So that's why
Right.
it's not a broken record, but we are, because we've just seen so many people who are suffering, and they're doing everything right except getting that little child adjusted.
Right. And I will say that they get results faster than even the adults do because they don't have as many years of toxic living or
Right.
toxic sitting and or lack of exercise because they're new
Right.
and they get great results.
Their cells, we talk about in certain shows, cells are like buckets, and their buckets aren't full of,
Buckets are not full.
40, 50, 60 years of toxins and environmental
Buying
poisons.
into
and
you got to
things like
take
that.
this, take
Right.
that, take that. Is there? You don't get health from outside in.
Very
Your
good.
health comes from inside.
Inside
so
out. Yep.
You need to let what's inside out.
And the amazing thing is that we were hanging, you and I were hanging with Robert Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
He spoke at an event, and actually, by the grace of God, I got to speak first, and then he spoke. I don't think he heard what I said, but I yelled loud enough, maybe he would. But then we got a picture taken with him, which is kind of cool. You can see it if you go to our Spine Geek Facebook page. You'll see that there. But again,
He's all for choices. He's for choices on. I will give you all the information so that you can make a wise decision, even on high fructose corn syrup. It's like I will tell you what all this stuff is, and you can make a wise consumer.
You can make your own choice.
You can make
Yeah.
your own choice, and so, but nowadays everything's all hidden. You don't even know the underlying secrets because it's all hush hush.
Right.
And he's going to expose it so that people can say, "Oh, this does this to my body. I don't want this in my food," and we can opt for them to make better food instead of just being in the dark about everything.
And he's again, folks, we're not crazy. When Robert Kennedy Jr. says it's the environmental toxins that are making your child chronically ill, meaning they're not eating or sleeping or pooping or moving right, they have speech and communication issues. They weren't made that way by God. Something got into their brain through toxic environment, either through the environment or through vaccines or through medication or through food that's got toxins in it or drinks that have toxins in it or EMF. I mean, we're not being those weirdo wackos. We're just saying that wasn't around in the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Yeah.
That wasn't around, right?
No, but he's been probably fighting it since in the 70s about environmental of all the toxins going in our water and in our land, and then they spray it on our field. And so there's a lot more we're being
You don't want
bombarded
mercury
with
in your fish. You don't want
Right.
mercury in your medicine. You don't want mercury and aluminum in anything you're putting on your skin because it has this neurological effect. And again, diet's good, exercise is good, detoxing is good, positive attitude's good, but there's nothing that flips that switch around to get that brain now detoxing that body like a proper pediatric neurological adjustment that we do in our office, and we have friends around the country, if not the world, PX docs and Max Living docs that do that. And so if anytime you're like, boy, they're talking to me, but I don't live in Denver, fly here. Come for a week. We just had a mom come in for 2 weeks from Texas. And man, the kids are, I'm telling you, from when they first came in on their first visit, run around going, they're a little out of control. But by 2 weeks of being with us, because they were visiting family, totally different kids. Now they're, the 2-year-olds are jumping on the table wanting to get adjusted. Before, they wouldn't even want to come near me that first week. And just seeing the transition of how they're pooping now and they're eating just by 2 weeks. So, but again, my point is that there's a way to help these children. And so speech and communication. And again, from the top down, it's so, we got to keep these toxins away from our babies.
Yes.
And from us as
can.
well.
Mm-hmm.
The number 2 on phase 2, so speech and communication. Next one is socialization and play. That a child should have an innate ability to be kind and loving to others. They have an innate ability to be kind and loving to their brothers and sisters. One of our mottos was you say, hey, better hug it out because you guys are best friends, right?
Yep. Best friends.
And so, as the brain's developing speech and communication, you're going to use that speech and communication to talk to others so you can socialize.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in a social environment, you're having your play dates, right?
You just don't scream and cry at somebody. You just say, no, I was playing with that first.
Exactly. You can communicate. You don't just walk around and go, mine,
Yeah.
and be the bully, because no one, again, I think it's Jordan Peterson talks about, you want your kid to be liked by other kids. You don't want your kids to be a jerk to his friends.
Yes.
That gets reflected. So socialization and play. Your child has to learn how to play.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you can do, Miss Ilene, to help your child learn to play?
I think you show them. I think also like encourage their imaginations. Like, okay, we're not inside. We're gonna go make some mud pies and have a mud tea party outside. It's where you you get dirty, you get outside, or we used to put like bubble bath in the little kiddie pool
Mhm.
and then play but with your swimsuits, you had your
Right.
swimsuit on. But boy, lots of fun. Or we do tag, or we do,
Riding bikes,
ride bikes. We had
walks,
swing
jump
set.
ropes.
You just so you can develop your upper motor or your
Yeah.
your
Yeah. I mean, look
body
at
and your physical.
so playing video games is not play. Being on an iPad is not play. Being on a cell phone is not play. I'm not against those, and there's a time for those.
There
but,
should be limits on
but
that.
it
Yeah, I
doesn't
agree.
recharge the body. It doesn't help with socialization because, again, playing is for the brain. It's brain food. Movement can be nourishing your nutrients. So turn your backyard into a place where your kids can safely go and play, and then be the house that all the friends want to come to and play at because the backyard's so cool. You know,
Right.
that it's safe to play. It's safe to be, like you said, on the swing set. It's safe. Again, I'm not a real big fan of trampolines. There's a benefit, but there has to be strict rules too because you can't just
No flips.
We had strict rules like no more than one person at a time and no
'Cause you
flips.
those little kids will shoot the smaller kids
Yeah.
right off. So yeah.
And
No,
so
no.
we have to have rules with that. So the
But
socialization,
the rebounding is good. Jumping is really good, especially for your thyroid and stuff. So.
jumping is very good. Parents, stay off the trampoline. You can bound, which means bounding is like your feet don't go in the air, but you can bound, but don't jump. It's just not good for 30 and 40-year-old people.
Yeah.
Speaking from
No,
experience.
you watch all those. What is it? Kid fails. I follow that on Snapchat, and all these. I hate to say
Yeah.
it. It's mostly the fathers. They go in here
Yeah.
and kick the ball, and it lands right on the kid's face.
Yeah,
Just
it's not good.
concussion. I'm like,
and have a
fathers don't
trampoline
do
that,
that.
has a wall around it. So, because most kids fall through or fall off or jump over, it's, be smart, but I can't watch it. So speech and communication is number one. Socialization and play is number two. Again, the brain
But
is.
I think parents, because you need to show them how to play.
Yeah.
They don't always know.
You got to play with them.
Yeah.
You got to be engaged in there and just play and learn how to play sportsmanship and learn how to play fair and how to be a good loser and how to be a good winner.
Right.
All
or
those things are important.
Even dress up to where you're being a good person, or you're a knight in shining armor, or
Right.
Bible man. We used to do these dress up in Bible man.
You'd have, we had a bin full of all kinds of stuff.
All kinds of dress up.
Now our boys and girls call it cosplay, and they spend
That's right.
way too much money on cosplay.
But they get
who knew?
They get really creative.
We
and
just
make
called
their
it
own
make
outfits.
believe and playing the
That's
house
right.
and stuff like that, right?
Yep.
So number 3 in this phase 2 of milestones of your child and your brain growing up, basically that's what it is, your brain growth. Your brain's growing up and you get to enjoy the ride.
Exactly.
Is behavior and emotional regulation.
Yes.
And that's huge when it's time to go to public settings, whether it's a restaurant or daycare or school or church.
Yeah, I was just talking to a mom this morning about it, and they were talking about a kid. Actually, it's a grandkid, and the grandkid will just throw down and just make this crazy screaming noise tantrum on the floor, and some of the parents would just watch. And it's like, I'm sorry, then if you want to do this, you take that behavior into your bedroom. And so there needs to be rules with some of that, or training, or but that it needs to be set up. We did a thing years ago called Growing Kids God's Way, and that was like, if you wanted to talk to me and I'm having a conversation or I'm on the phone, you have to touch my hand or my shoulder. It was called the interrupt rule. And so as soon as I take a breath or that person stops talking, I can say, excuse me, and then talk to my kid, but it's not just, oh, you've got to, I got to talk to you now and I get to scream and throw this fit. It's like, no. And we even used that when Leah was a thumbsucker. We're like, we love you, and you're I don't know, 4 or 5 years old or whatever. We said you can totally suck your thumb. I'm not saying don't, but you can only do it in your bedroom.
Right.
And so she would rather come out with us and not suck her thumb. But if she needed to suck her thumb, she would walk into her bedroom and suck her thumb. You know what I mean? Do you remember doing that?
No, I remember asking, why do you suck your thumb? Because it tastes good, And now part of me feels bad when you mention that because, again, that was our daughter who had the seizures. And I think innately what was happening with the thumb sucking is that she had some cranial issues
probably
going on.
protected her brain.
And she was keeping the upper plate of the brain, vault stimulated. And because we saw more seizures once she stopped sucking her thumb. And so, thumb sucking doesn't necessarily ruin teeth. I'm just going to go say it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Do you ruin your teeth? Maybe, maybe not. You're going to get braces anyways because that's what the cool kids do. You're going to put them on there because that's just, the cool kids do that. But, I am not so apt to, again, thumb sucking is a sign to me that the child has cranial issues and needs to be adjusted and cared for properly.
Right.
Because I think there's something going on other than, or it needs to feel secure, or it needs to do something. But there's again, one of the basic brain things is sleep. You have to soothe yourself. And the thumb sucking again, I'm not quick anymore to judge going, that's bad, that's good. Again, this was back in 1989, 1991, 92, 93. We knew what we knew, right? But there's a process to that. And where are we going with that?
We were just talking about settling yourself down and emotionally.
Yourself.
So,
and behaviors,
behaviors, and that there's some
growing kids God's way.
Yes. So just some rules,
right.
I think, or things that you can use as guidelines to help you set up something in your room with your family so that it works with your family.
And we gave the children boundaries because one of the things I remember from growing kids God's way was, listen, your children are not the center of your family.
That's right.
Jesus is.
Mm-hmm.
That your children are welcome members of your family. Mm-hmm. And folks, if you don't get any, there's probably top 5 things, and that was one of them. That the child is not there to run the family. Mm-hmm. The child's not there to be the center of attention. The child is a welcome member of the family. Mm-hmm. And Jesus is the center of the family.
Right.
And once I heard that and saw that, my wife and I, Ilene, we could come into agreement saying, okay, she's trying or he's trying. Nope. Like we had a dog one time that tried to be the center of the family, and it's unfortunate that dog had to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so
it started biting everybody.
Yeah, because we would start. It was like wasn't fair. It wasn't fun being in our home because this dog would just start to do
right if you didn't pay attention.
It was
to her.
unpredictable, and sometimes children can be that way. And we're like, nope, sorry. If you want to behave that way, you can go to your room, and when you're done, come back out.
Yep.
So
and parenting is not easy. I mean, we all get tired, and especially like if you're growing a baby in you're tired, and so you need to. You got to rely on your husband and that you're a team to keep the rules so that everyone keeps safe.
Everybody has to follow.
Yeah.
And everybody has to enforce, for a better word, the rules. Like, older sister says, hey, that's not how we behave here. Remember, mom and dad are trying to, and dad says, no, you don't talk to my wife that way. And we stick up for each other because we want to keep the boundaries up. And then with regulation, again, we talked about and showed the previous show about our Blondie daughter, May. She would go off on a tangent, and we had to literally physically sometimes change the channel, meaning we had to change the environment, change the stimulus so that her brain, like squirrel. We use squirrel to our favor. Squirrel.
Ooh, look at this.
Yeah, look at that. And then it totally, and if anything, we called it squirrel, or I see parents doing that today. I stand there and when I'm working and adjusting and seeing parents, how just cool and how they have words and things. And I'm like, oh man.
There's so much more information nowadays than when we were kids.
I wish I'd have had those words back then. That'd have been so much better than saying, just because I said so, But just changing that channel. We called it changing the channel.
Yeah.
Because she was stuck in a mood or a moment or something, and it just wasn't going. So we had to, and again, getting back to helping the brain flip the switch. As far as behavior and emotional regulation. And so just as we wrap this up, phase 1 is your child needs to learn how to eat and sleep and poop and move and have control of those movements, walking, jumping, running. That's important. That's basic brain connection. Then it builds the base of, so now the child in phase 2 can then begin to speech, talk, communicate, socialize, play. Again, these are all for a reason, right? To be a community. Then behaviors. Again, it's okay to be mad, but what do you do with that? It's okay to be emotional, but what do you do with that? And when do you respond with that? And when can you change the channels? Meaning, you might, even though you're mad, you might want to learn to forgive and be kind and be things like that. And the last one is cognition, cognitive learning, that you can have a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
you can be in a social setting, you can be behaving, and you're taking in information, and you're learning, and you're remembering. You're not just becoming a robot
Right.
of whatever, my children aren't to be a robot or just do what I tell you to do and don't ask any questions and just do it. That's great in a situation like, stop, that car's coming, turn around. They need to be able to listen to the authority of mom or dad in a moment and go, well, why? Because I don't have time to tell you why. Do it.
Mhm.
There's time for that.
Right.
But
'cause
that's not-
sometimes
but
there's
that's
an
not a-
emergency situation. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
But that's not parenting.
Right.
Which that was me, but learning and why do we not touch the stove? Why do we not want to watch TV all day? Why, do we want to go out and play? Why do we eat this way when
Right.
everybody else doesn't? Why do we
Right.
get adjusted? They need to know the why.
Right. I also think that like when you're doing education, you're always teaching your kids stuff as you're growing from little on up. You're like, oh, these are my colors and that stuff. And I think that the more variety of medias that you use. I mean, I don't think all your learning should be on a phone or an
No.
iPad. I think it needs to be like tangible for your hands and
Yes.
and fun. Like what was we used to use some what do they call sun drops? What it's like? Okay, if you can pee in the toilet and it stays in the toilet,
Hit the Cheerio.
You get not
Hit
the
the Cheerio. We had we had girls that sat down and boys that stood up. So yes. So when it goes potty, right?
Yeah,
So we had
that's how
games.
it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, no,
But
I'm
yeah,
just saying, but
okay. But just just so that there's different things. There's different ways of learning. So you try to use them all. Like
Right.
Just not
And-
always
and now,
one media.
And now you've got Pinterest, YouTube, whatever.
Yeah, but they're
to
all
help.
on. They're all on screen
But
time
they,
though.
but they give you ideas. No, I'm saying they give
Oh,
you
okay.
ideas of how to
Oh,
be creative,
yeah.
of how to play,
Totally.
of what to eat. We didn't have any of that. I mean, we were looking at a phone book if we wanted to call somebody,
Seriously,
right?
and these
Yeah.
hacks nowadays, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm in awe. Going,
Yeah.
how come we never knew any of these
Well, exactly.
things?
But
Oh, my
I will tell
goodness.
you, your mom knew.
That's
your
true.
mom knew.
My mom was
Your mom
queen
was
of hacks. Because
I mean, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
she would put you on the wagon and walk you down to the library and read,
Mhm.
and she'd help you make your own dolls' dresses,
Yep.
and you would play make believe and have dress up.
Oh, dress up.
I
Goodness.
mean, your mom was the original cosplayer, right?
Mhm.
Being at the museum and just the reenactments and stuff like that.
Mhm. Oh
you
yeah.
know? Yeah.
She would
It's
get
all
these
cosplay.
antique clothes that
Yes.
you're like with all the beadwork and stuff, and we got to play in that stuff with fancy hats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. Yeah.
And
it was
so
amazing.
so that's what it was back then, and now it is today, and it's like it still works. So I mean, again, on Spine Geek Podcast, we're all about where the brain makes the rules, no matter what age you are. And if you like what we're saying, please like the podcast, subscribe, share it with your friends. Again, in today's world, this message is the right message. May not be a popular message, and we get that, but we always want to tell you the truth from our heart, from experience. And so you can find out more about us on spinegeek.com. You can always text us with questions. We have PDFs we can send as far as the right mindset to have with our children and ourselves, how the nerve system affects everything, food as fuel, how to move, how to exercise. We have workout videos that the kids can do with you. And we have ways of making sure keeping your environment free of toxins.
And if you have any questions about any of these things, because it's so many things and it's so much that just text us.
It's baby steps, one podcast at a time, right? And so 303-457-8080 is an easy way to text us, or go to spinegeek.com. You can schedule a week or two. We call it spine immersion, or we can just send you stuff and find you a PX doc or a Max Living doc by you that knows how to deal with family issues, pediatric issues, things like that. Because again, there's 5 essentials. One is mindset. And that mindset can bring peace to your life, or it can stress you out and affect this phase 1, phase 2 brain development that we're talking about. You can have what we call a subluxation, where you have pinching on the nerve system from birth trauma, slips and falls, and that can cause a disconnect in this phase 1, phase 2 brain milestones. Food can cause a strong connection in these milestones, or food formula can cause a disconnect in these brain milestone developments. Exercise is movement. It recharges the brain. It helps you connect with movement patterns and control.
Gives you more
And they're
oxygen,
all
too.
connected. Yeah, and oxygen to the body. You need that for proper brain and phase 1 and phase 2 milestone development. And then toxins. Toxins block the brain's ability to allow your body's milestones to happen naturally. So we want to keep the toxins away. We don't need them. They're not there to help. They're there to hurt. And so again, as we wrap up this Spine Geek podcast, just know that we love you and appreciate you. You can always again find us at spinegeek.com, but we'll see you next time on the next Spine Geek podcast. Have a good day.